Good evening. This is the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, May 29th. We're starting at a little after 6:30, and we'll start by going around the table and introducing ourselves, and then we'll start the agenda. Larry, do you want to start?
Larry Johnson, Shasbury.
Claude DeLucia, Bennington.
George Sleeman, Bennington School District.
Sean Marie Oler, Mount Anthony.
Catherine McClure, Superintendent of Schools.
Cindy Brownell, Pownell.
Donna Leap, Assistant Superintendent.
Frank Kinney, Shasbury.
Jim O'Connor, Pownell.
Avis Bruce Hurley, Woodford.
Ray Molyneux, North Bennington.
Matthew Patterson, North Bennington.
All right, so I'm going to, Lori or Sky or Melody?
Tara.
Tara, sorry. Did you have citizens' comments this evening? Or are you just here to listen?
Yeah, but for some reason I was under the impression that they were after the presentation.
Okay, so I'm just making sure. Maura and Donna, who's introducing who?
I am.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Tonight you are receiving a presentation on Part 1 of the State of the Supervisory Union Report, Aligning Systems of Support for Improved Student Achievement. This evening's presentation is about the work of the SU School Improvement Team. This team is part of a new accountability measure established by the state of Vermont in response to federal mandates under No Child Left Behind. While specific work of this team is now centered on the middle school and the high school, the expectation is that the alignment of systems for student achievement will be supervisory union-wide. This is why the presentation tonight is called The State of the SU Part 1. Part 2, our reporting of specific data, will be at the June 6th meeting. Current members of the SU Improvement Team are myself, Assistant Superintendent Donna Leap, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Kathy Marcoux, Director of Technology Frank Barnes, Principals Sue McGuire and Tim Payne, and School Improvement Coach Mara Hart. Thank you, Donna Leap, Kathy Marcoux, and Mara Hart for tonight's presentation.
Thank you for that introduction, Superintendent McClure, and thanks to all of you for giving us a little time to present to you some of the work that we've been doing as a district team. We have worked carefully with some of the principals to help develop a plan for the district in monitoring and really focusing on student achievement and improvement in our district. And I just want to say, again, it is about student achievement, and we are working very hard at coming up with a coordinated plan that will move us forward. This is not just talk. I would like to say Dr. Maura Hart has helped us considerably to maintain our focus and really look at the data that we need to present in a meaningful way to staff members and administrators so that we can focus on specific student needs and make improvements there. So tonight, Kathy Marcoux is going to be our clicker. She's going to move the slides forward for us. Our presentation goals are to share our plan with you about supporting schools identified for school improvement under No Child Left Behind. And we have been notified by the Vermont Department of Education that we do not have annual yearly progress results until August this year. So that's a little disappointing for our presentation, but we will address that at future meetings and again in August when we have that data for you. But we also would like to note that they have given us notification that we can assume that all schools will be moved up in their status. So this plan is really eventually for everyone, although we're rolling it out at separate schools in this plan, but moving it to all schools next year. So we will share the alignment of school and SVSU improvement plans with you and look at the coordination with board goals. And again, it is to recommit to the increased unified supervisor union support, really looking at all schools and how can we work together to build student success. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Maura Hart. She's going to talk a little bit about some of the mandates that we are working with and how we're reaching our goals.
Thank you. You guys may remember me from about 3 or 4 months ago. I came and actually I think I presented a slide similar to this. And when I did that presentation, I told you that at the end I'd be asking you some questions to make sure you're paying attention. So if your learning style is such that you need to write things down, go ahead and write things down during this presentation, because my job is to ask you questions at the end to make sure you've been paying attention. So I'm going to run down where all of this is coming from very briefly. It's coming from the No Child Left Behind law, which each year it is in effect. It increases its standards for student achievement across the board. And so what has happened is schools consistently fall behind that increase in standard. There are 2 phrases in that No Child Left Behind law that are intended to hold schools accountable to the law. One phrase is fundamental reform. The other phrase is substantial promise of increased student achievement. What the state of Vermont did, which I commend, is they adopted a research-based, data-driven program to help teams create goals and steps to achieve those goals in order to meet the No Child Left Behind law. And in terms of fundamental reform, you may remember between 2 and 3 years ago, there would occasionally be headlines across the country about districts that fired everyone, from administration down. That's because of the fundamental reform clause in the No Child Left Behind Act law. What we know is that that doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. So the state of Vermont took that fundamental reform, adopted this GMS planning program, and required for our fundamental reform that we differentiate the way we make decisions. So rather than decision-making being isolated and top-down, they've asked that decision-making be teamed and inclusive of teachers, administrators at both levels, high school and district level. The other thing around fundamental reform that the state of Vermont is requiring of us in order to get around firing everybody is that not only do school improvement teams, not only are there school leadership teams to make decisions, there is also a district leadership team to make decisions and work with the school leadership teams. So that speaks to fundamental reform. The second piece, in terms of substantial promise of increased student achievement, what the state is requiring us to do is amazing, brilliant, use specific data to base decisions for improving instruction upon. So rather than, going out and reading the research or attending different workshops and realizing that that sounds good and we like that and it might really help, we're going to look at data school-wide and district-wide and isolate the areas that we need to focus on to improve student achievement and use that data to make decisions. So that's where we're getting at the substantial promise of increased student achievement. And the two work together because we use the data in these leadership teams that are being formed at the school level and at the district level, and there's ample communication between those teams because, for example, on the school level teams, the principal must be on that leadership team. On the SU team, the principals of the restructuring schools must be on that team. So and also I don't work for the state. I'm here through the state. The state had also the presence of mind to realize that this is a big switch and a lot of work and to provide funding for coaches, which is what I've done with 3 different teams, the high school team, the middle school team, and the district team. And I have a liaison from the state who has been knocking at my door since November. She does not leave me alone with regard to the plans that we're making because we need to prove that we have fundamental reform within these plans and that we have substantial promise. Furthermore, they are requesting that we create goals and what are called SMART goals, and I brought this up at the last meeting, where we show improved measurement. So we're using data. So I'm collecting kneecap data, for example, graduation rates, dropout rates, and I am, for the high school plan, for example, I had to write, because the state enforced it, that the high school graduation rate will increase each year by 2%. That is one of several ways the state is mandating that we show improvement. So that gets to that last little bullet, no exit door, and that's where I get to go sit down and someone else takes over. Does anyone have any questions so far about what I had to say?
Where are the teachers on this team?
The teachers are, for example, at the middle school, Tim Payne sent out, the GMS team created a job description and sent it out to all teachers, and they have to submit a letter and meet with Tim to interview for whether or not they'd be a good person to be on the leadership team.
But they're not on the district team.
And the district team is mandated, the people that are placed on the district team is mandated by the state. So it's got to be the superintendent, assistant superintendent, curriculum director, technology director, and principals from all schools that are in need of restructuring. Any other? Yes?
Could you give a couple examples of data points, types of data you're collecting?
Yeah, I am actually trying to keep it simple because convoluted plans and a lot of data is actually not helpful. So the data that I collected, for example, for the high school is literacy and math on kneecaps over the past 5 years as compared to state growth rates. And I used that to measure how can we push the high school just a little bit more than their already measured growth rate. Right now, we're just collecting data for the SVSU, but one of the things we're looking at is how many students are in a least restrictive environment. This, again, is being pushed by the state onto me to find that data so that we can say there'll be fewer students that are going to a restrictive environment. So those are some examples of data. Also MAPS data that the schools use, especially the middle school uses, to understand where the kids are within literacy and within math and push them a little further skill specific. Yes, another question.
Jim, I think has another question, but I have a question.
Okay.
Oh, well, go ahead. It's a follow-up.
I'll just follow a question. You mentioned kneecap as the data, and that's going away, correct?
Yes.
So what's going to replace that as a math? Let's talk about math. What's going to be the math data next year?
Well, welcome to the world of education. At that point, the jury is out. There is a new test and a new, what is it called?
SBAC.
Yeah, the new test is called SBAC, but that responds to a new set of criteria for curriculum and for instruction, which is called the Common Core. So all schools nationwide, for the most part, are switching over to, rather than the kneecap data, they're going to use SBAC data, Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. Thank you.
We'll take kneecap though in the fall of 2013, so we will have that data again next year. The first time students will take the SBAC, although we've taken pilot tests this year, the first time will be in the spring of 2015. It will switch from a fall to a spring assessment.
It'll be a year and a half gap.
So being a person who sees the glass as half full, I actually see this as an advantage for schools, because that gives you a year and a half where, frankly, the state and the feds are scrambling to figure out how to hold schools accountable for that year and a half data. And that's your opportunity to move ahead, so that when they do get that data and they have a comparison rate, you can say, haha, leave us alone. Yes?
Summer, did you want to go next?
So, this is maybe not the right forum for this, but even if the decision to do something which is mandated by state or federal and your team doesn't feel that it's educationally appropriate, is there some kind of
Protest.
way to get out of that? I mean, this is something we run up against quite often.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So there are two responses to that. The first is, see that last bullet? Yeah, that's the first answer. However, the second answer is that actually we're all on the same page. The feds, the state, and districts. What do we all want?
Student
Achievement.
Right. So, what the state, one of the benefits of putting a coach into the schools and into the district is they allow some capacity for leeway. So within this GMS plan, schools and districts can make decisions that are tailored or differentiated to the specific school or SU to a degree. And an example of then pushing it so that we can manipulate a little bit but still stay within the law is this. The high school 2 years ago restructured. They have a leadership team that is really effective. And the data shows that that school is improving. Their graduation rate is improving, their dropout rate is improving, their literacy scores are improving on NECAP, and their math scores are getting there. They're going up, not as rapidly as we'd like. So I actually took it to task with my liaison at the state, who 2 weeks ago said, this plan for the high school does not show that you've restructured. And so I pulled out the data and I said, this plan also allows us to maintain certain objectives. So we can say, we did that, we do that, and this is how we're going to ensure that we continue to do it. And that's what we did for the leadership team, and I pushed back, and so far it's been accepted by the state. So to a degree, there is some wiggle room, and it's because the feds, the state, and districts and schools, actually we are all on the same page, and we're trying to work together. I'm not defending the No Child Left Behind law. I don't think when that was initiated, there were really very few educational people that said, hey, this is a good idea. It's a bunch of politicians. But since we're stuck there, they're allowing a little leeway, but they're still holding us very, very accountable. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I think, Laura, too, this was part of my remarks afterwards, but it's a good time to just mention, we have been doing data collection and we have had data teams in the schools, but what's going to be different here is that we're actually targeting our look at the data to those areas which specifically show no improvement, and then linking action goals or results-oriented goals to those areas, rather than trying to look at the breadth of all the data, which could include socioeconomic data and all of this. We're really focusing on that on an urgent and singular way, and that's the difference. More accountability.
Thank you.
Any?
Just a very quick point of clarification.
It's okay, go ahead.
Just a very quick point of clarification. In the Green Mountain Star system, it says district over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
The district we're talking about is the supervisory
Supervisory union, right. Thank you,
from
Kathy.
districts. This discussion tonight is specific to the supervisory union and the supports that are to be aligned with school plans. It's very hard to get away from that. We often use the two terms interchangeably, but please know that that's the point of clarification tonight is supervisory union.
Yeah, that's my
thank you,
mistake. I
Kathy.
need to keep
David?
supplanting supervisory union with district.
Yes, you said 2% every year increase in graduation rate. 2% of what, and when does this start, and when does it reach accumulation point where we couldn't possibly handle it?
2% of the population, so for each senior class, each year, we want 2% more from the last year to graduate. And we're there when we have 100% graduation rate.
Okay, so, in other words, if we up our ante from, say, 80% to 85 on to 90%, we hit 90, and we're kind of in a hold pattern, we then will be penalized because we
don't know
fail to
yet.
continue another 2% each year.
Well, that remains to be seen. I don't know how how they will hold us accountable. And by they, I mean state who are driven by feds. I really don't know. But going back to the glass is half full, so you have 10 grandchildren, and only 9 of them graduate from high school. Are you done? Do you give up on that last one, or do you keep trying?
Well, you keep trying, but the point of the matter is that if I keep trying, I know I put my best effort forth, and no one can hit me over the head about it. But here, we get hit over the head if we don't make it.
Yeah, yeah.
What's our starting number? What was the graduation rate last year?
I don't know the specifics.
So we don't know
We're
what
pretty,
the-
2012 was still being verified.
Pardon?
2012 is still being verified, it's not yet on the state website.
For graduation.
The 2011 is the last one that's there, and I believe that our cohort rate, which is entering school as a freshman and graduating as a senior,
That's the 4-year
that's a 4-year cohort graduation rate, not event completion, is in the 80s.
Well, does anybody have an idea what it is?
Yeah, it is 80s.
It's like
It's in the 80s.
83%.
I think it's
82.
People that started 9th grade finished 12th grade?
Right, so in other words, there's a 4-year cohort, a 5-year, and a 6-year. And the Vermont has a 91% graduation rate overall. It's the highest in the country, although we also have the lowest percentage of kids going on to higher education.
So,
There's a disconnect.
Do we have I guess it's called the event rate, which would be kids who stay in the system from kindergarten or first grade?
That data would be different. The event completion rate data is seniors who start the year as seniors graduate at the end of that year.
That's a different.
There are also a certain percentage, it's usually somewhere between 4 and 5% in the SVSU who stay for another year of high school. They may be going into some technical field or doing other things, and they're considered not in that 4-year cohort rate, but they remain in school for a 5th year and occasionally a 6th year.
And they're not counted in their nickel.
Well, they're
Or they
counted
haven't
that
yet.
they didn't graduate, so they would be in the negative.
But they're not counted when they graduate.
When they graduate, they are counted, but they're counted in a different cohort.
Yeah.
The graduation rate in terms of AYP is enter as a freshman, graduate as a senior in 4 years.
But my question was different. My question was 12-year rate. Do we have any data on
The
that?
12-year rate, we have data on that, but it is, and I have to explain it to you, it's the odd part about that is that there's
Got lost.
huge mobility
Yeah.
piece
Yeah, the
in this
transients.
area, and it's up to the high school to find the
But
students.
you
that
would
they-
have to make that of the children who stick around through the 12 years.
Right, and do you want it by students who stay in the same elementary school for their entire elementary school experience, or does it not matter to you?
It's an event for the whole SVSU because this high school serves everybody. So it doesn't matter where they
In what
finish
respect
their
it is.
elementary.
Right, for an individual school district, might
But
not
I mean,
have-
if you
You know,
don't
well,
have.
this is kind of a tangent.
But it's
So
good.
Fran, but George is going to give me the hook.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm just curious. We knowingly have graduated kids that can't read or write out of the system. I think every system. My point is, what happens to those kids, and how are you monitoring? I mean, I've been through enough of these presentations. How are you monitoring that? I mean, they're done. They can't read. You can't do math. You can't do anything.
Well, that's why we're really focusing on early, high-quality instruction and using formative assessments to monitor who is reading and who's not, so that we can focus, like Superintendent McClure said, on the areas of challenge and specifically look at what students need interventions to help them learn to read. It's not necessarily special education. It's just looking at, if we change their instructional model, can they succeed? Can they learn? And we have to do that very early. And
Okay,
that,
how are you going to track it, though? That's what I'm interested in. If the
so what
kids,
happens is they end up in voc rehab, or they end up in other alternative programs with the tutorial center or the GED. There's all sorts of
Alternative.
Agency for Human Services
that track all of those numbers, but the only ones that I know that we have are a couple years out of high school, you know, in terms of our data.
Retention, and that's retention in secondary,
But
post-secondary.
it's a question that the state is grappling with too, because as I said before, a 91% graduation rate sounds great, but then what are they doing afterwards?
I mean, I don't know, it's kind of like they're done before they get out of here. I mean, you can't function if you can't read. I mean, you can't even do a job
What are you,
application.
Tim Holbrook?
Well, no, I'm just curious, what's the cure for it? Because we still...
We're really talking about response to instruction and intervention. So we're really targeting through this system and others an urgent and singular focus on what is going to affect achievement. And part of that is what's called progress monitoring. So we're doing a lot more monitoring of students and intervening sooner, Fran, rather than waiting until the third test of the MAPS to see what we're going to do to change instruction. Instruction is being changed immediately in the moment of the day by either formative assessment, which is really being used widely at the high school and middle school, and then continuous progress monitoring. We're using Ames Web at Monument, and that's spreading out to other schools as well. So it's really to get that intervention early, right when we see it, rather than waiting until they can be scheduled into a remedial group or whatever. So it's really leveraging those classroom teachers to intervene as well and not wait for supplementary service to intervene.
Well,
And it's going to take a while to see the impact because we're only just starting this last year.
How long is that? Is that a year,
Usually,
2 years?
an impact like that, well, this is the interesting thing. In traditional programming for improvement, you usually have to wait 3 years to see the impact. But because we're monitoring individual students and intervening when individual students need it, we should see a more immediate effect on individual students. Now, how that's going to translate to the whole group, we'll have to wait and see. But it's a more immediate intervention.
Time check.
I know, so we're moving on to George's mandate now. So he only gave us 30 minutes, and we're already almost there, so he's watching his watch, so we're going to move on. I just want you to know, as a team, we really looked at your SVSU board goals as a starting point. So I think you can all pat yourselves on the back that last year at about this time, you did adopt these goals that are very important for us to use as the backbone of what we're trying to accomplish. So number one is student achievement, especially, and here it is, by high quality first instruction and experiential learning, to develop a culture of inspiration and engagement for staff, students, parents, and the community to be positively involved in education, to develop a culture with behavior and communication that are driven with values of respect, commitment, and openness. And I think us being here tonight and in a repeated way to present what we're working on is our way of communicating with you in an ongoing way what we're working on to make things better. So for our team, the state required these indicators as a mandate. We had to develop a mission, a vision, a system of support, and other objectives to meet our goals. So as a team, we did develop a mission, which was to plan and implement a comprehensive learning blueprint to promote continuous improvement of teaching and learning for all. And both of these were a real collaborative effort that people worked hard on and honestly about what are we doing really and how are we going to make improvements. And then the vision was, how are we going to do that? We are going to collect and analyze data, many different kinds of data. We'll talk about that a little bit. Provide focused resources for schools according to what they need. For example, at Monument, we really had to make sure that they had the assessments and the materials ready for them to implement a response to intervention program. And to build your support, which again is why we're here, really to look at research and develop professional development that meets the needs of improving our instruction all around. So with that, we did develop our goal, our system of support, which is a framework of what we have here in the SVSU. And then our goals were closely aligned to what you have as board goals. Number one is improvement. What we all want for number one is to promote continuous improvement for students, faculty, staff, and administrators. We include everyone, because everyone's still learning. Goal 2 was interventions, again, to really look closely at specific strategies that will focus on our areas of challenge and then give student supports around those needs. And then goal number 3 is professional development, which we find very important in the structure of making change and really looking at the research that has been done, because education is changing. I often hear, well, they all went to school, they should know what to do, but that is not true. Education has changed, brain research has changed the field, and we really have to, if we want to implement these models of response to intervention that really make improvement, we have to teach everyone how to restructure the schedule, how to restructure the staff, how to use the data so that people are really functioning in that new world. So I'm going to let Dr. Hart tell you a little bit about professional development, goal number 3.
So do I need to use this in order to be on the television? I mean, could I stand here? It's okay.
Theoretically, you could.
All right, so this is where I get to appeal to you about supporting professional development and supporting the plan that the SU created. Professional development is always a really sticky place with boards because a lot of people see it as money. And to do it effectively, it is money. But, I can walk around with it, be like,
Yeah, game show.
I'll try this. It is money. But I want to talk to you, appeal to you a little bit about why we need professional development. Many of you may be in businesses, and I am certain that in businesses, they don't just walk away from learning. They invest money in research and development. And that is the aspect, professional development is that aspect of the education world. And I won't talk very long, but I want to point out, Donna mentioned brain-based research. 20 years ago, we knew nothing about how the brain operates. Now, we know a ton about how the brain operates. We know a ton about how the brain learns and how structures in the brain actually change. Teachers don't know all of that because no one can afford to enable them to learn about it. So I say not all teachers. Teachers are learning about it, but not enough. Also, you can't argue that the globe is changing and our learners are changing. So whether we like it or not, because of the influx of screen time and because of the handheld technology that kids have, they are the tech generation. So their brain structure has actually changed so that they are not able to focus on a task for as long as they used to be able to. So when you went to school, you could focus on a task longer than when today's learners go to school. So teachers need to engage them more efficiently. And the way that they do that is through collaborative problem-based learning, which is also what is being driven by that test that's coming up, the SBAC, and the Common Core. But so without telling and teaching the teachers about this, they cannot effectively teach the learner. We've got brain-based research, we've got that learner needs are changing, we've got that technology is actually changing their brain so that we need to engage them more as teachers. And then finally, you mentioned it in your goal number 2 about a culture of inspiration and engagement where staff, students, etc. are positively engaged in education. One thing we know about how human beings learn is that we learn in a community. We don't learn in isolation. So if a teacher is not growing, how can we expect a student to grow? I argue that it is the most important place that you can put your money, professional development, in order to move your kids forward. Thanks.
Uh-oh.
Somebody ringing? Davis?
Just ask a question here, if I understood you correctly. Here I am, 72 and a half years of age, a very good product of a very good education way back when. Now, in other words, the children I'm seeing on the street today do not learn in the same way I did.
Did you have a cell phone?
I certainly did not, and I still don't, thank you.
There's research showing, and we can't go on a tangent because we only have a half hour, but
we're
it's
almost done.
phenomenal. There's research showing what your brain might have looked like 40 years ago and what a student's brain today looks like, and they are fundamentally, structurally different.
It is scary.
It is very scary.
No, that wasn't.
So just to get back to your SVSU goals, this is just one of the aspects of how we plan to collect some data and look at it carefully. We use achievement data, but also graduation data. Attendance data is very important. If they're not in school, they can't be learning, and how are we going to encourage them and use our data to proactively for that. Health and well-being is very important for all children and families, and also our behavioral support data. We've used that a lot to implement some strategies and bring in some special providers. Polly Bath has been here and worked with staff at certain schools to help them build stronger systems that will reduce the amount of disruption to instruction. So we're using data in many different ways. We're just giving a brief overview tonight. Again, this brings together all of your goals and puts it in a background of a culture of respect and support from the community, but centers on students and what are their needs, how are the schools going to provide that, how is the supervisory union going to help that, and again, how will the community help move us forward. So we did look at some data in a long-term way. We frequently get asked about cohorts, and it's something about what you were mentioning, Ray, about looking at groups as they move through the system. This way you can, I'll thank Kathy Marcoux for this beautiful visual she put together.
This is great.
You can look at the reading of the same cohort of students, which the kids are different every year, and in different schools with smaller or larger class sizes, there can be huge variation. So this shows the reading results of all of the students together across those grade levels. And you can see that over time, they are making, little ups and downs, but progress toward the end. They are really making significant gains in the 7th and 8th grade. Reading looked great in the middle school this year. So
I'm really
this
excited because that 8th grade 79% reading for fall 2010, there'll be 11th graders next fall.
So that's an exciting way to look at it. That's the reading. Looks good. We have implemented a lot of strategies in reading instruction.
So the 61, so that's the proficient, those are the two categories
That's
combined.
proficiency, yeah.
And the L
Proficient or
stands for?
Levels 3 and 4, proficient or proficient with distinction.
Okay,
Sorry,
Jim?
I just wanted to make the numbers big.
Does this include special ed numbers?
The all-student category includes all of the students who took the assessment at that grade level, so yes.
Free and reduced lunch, special, anything that's out of the,
This is 100% of the students.
100% of the students who took the assessment at each of those grades. This is just there'll be other data too in the next,
in part 2, next time, we'll go into this data.
The math results.
And these are the math results. You can see we still have a ways to go in math. We are working on that. We demonstrated that at our last meeting for you, some of the pilot programs that are going on, but it is, so you can look at the data and you can see, here's our area of focus. We need to do more work here. So to conclude, we all want to work together. We need your support. We need every staff member and administrator to help move this along, and that's why we're aligning our goals and working together. We need to look at research-based strategies. There are ways to address all of our learning issues, and I want to thank Dr. Hart for helping us with that. She brings us a lot of information. We're unified in the supports for all students, and our next steps are looking forward to Next meeting, we will do part 2 with the supervisory union data. We have kneecap data, and we will have some other trends to show you. And then in August, the annual yearly progress goals will be released, and we can look at our school improvement plans together at that time in a new year and looking at focusing on results.
Ray?
Well, the basic question, does this strategy actually increase the amount of contact time between students and teachers? And is that the reason for the success?
I don't know if it increases the time, but it increases the focused instruction that each student gets according to their level of need, so that they are taught exactly where they are in their learning.
Sounds like it does.
Yes.
That, to me, says that they're getting actually more contact
yes.
and more influence and
Because
impact from
it
the teacher.
includes whole group lessons as well as then very focused lessons on their needs.
I would say that that was a basic premise of education in the first place, and we didn't need data to figure that out. We just needed to figure out that we needed to pay attention to individuals.
Right. Well, you need the data to see really where are students' challenges and strengths, so that you know how to focus the instruction.
Increasing the quality, it's increasing the quality.
Did you say that was or wasn't your point?
No, my point was that the strategy was known before.
Well, I'm going to add to that, that while it may be increased, which we don't know because we don't have the answer to that, in some cases, it's the same amount of time, but with students that might be all at the same level that need that direct instruction, so it may not be that. It may, in some cases, be less for some.
There may be students who were not getting much attention at all, and grouped together, they get that attention.
And I have used this in my schools, so I do know, in addition to the time, in addition to the attention, they are also motivated because they're with groups of students with like abilities, and they're not shy about participating, and it really does help.
Yeah, I'm not knocking the importance of data. I'm pointing out that to me, we put data in the equation as if it's the end-all be-all, and actually, it's just a tool, sort of a tactical tool for reaching the strategic goal. And the strategic goal, we actually know how to reach. We've known it for centuries.
Okay.
So that's your conclusion?
Actually, almost. Remember I told you that if you needed to take notes, because it was going to be your turn?
All right, quick quiz.
Actually, I just want to tell you, actually, there are some answers that are better than others, but any answer is acceptable. One more thing I wanted to say about professional development. The type of person we need to graduate in the world today now is very different to the type of person we needed to graduate 10 years ago. And teachers, we need to help teachers to understand how to create that type of learner because of the global collaboration problems facing the globe. So that's a little hint about how some answers might be better than others, but all answers are acceptable, and you'll see why. What is your takeaway from this presentation? What are you going to remember tomorrow, driving home tonight, next week as you make your way back to another board meeting? What's your takeaway? I'd like at least 3 or 4 people to share.
Avis,
if everyone could share that.
Avis, you
Avis?
Yes.
Avis is still trying to wrap her mind around the fact that her brain is different from the kids today, okay?
That's the takeaway.
Give me a chance to deal with that.
Yeah, that's your takeaway. That's an excellent takeaway. Yeah.
Cindy?
I think one thing I like what I've heard is that you're really trying a different method to improve math and reading, because I have to agree, been in the system a long time, and there are a lot of students who have graduated and they couldn't read. Or, I worked at Price Chopper and the kids couldn't make change. So, I mean, I think you're really trying a different avenue to improve this, and that is excellent.
Yep. Yep.
And you got to have a positive attitude. You have to go in with an open mind.
Yeah.
Larry?
Thank you.
You have something? Claude?
I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, Claude. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna move, go ahead, I think before public comments, I'm gonna move the superintendent's report up because I think it dovetails with the presentation we just had.
So while we're targeting with a singular and urgent methodology areas that are going to result in more direct student achievement, it returns the role of the principal to that instructional leader, and we really want to make sure that we're supporting our principals in allocating time in their relationship with teachers to present high-quality first instruction in the classroom. And to do that, we have a new teacher evaluation system that's been revised. As you know, we are tweaking that system this year in its use, and we'll be presenting it on June 26th for your approval. Also, this summer at the Principals Retreat, we are going to be starting the revision of the Principals Evaluation System, as well as providing more professional development for principals and outlining the SU School Improvement Team support for their building supervision relationships with teachers in the classroom, targeted on instruction. And the summer's planned professional development has a number of courses, everything from repetitive coursework in communications and improving communications, additional mathematics. We have also continued our coursework offerings in how to use physical activity to get cognitive readiness in classrooms, regular classrooms, before students learn new content or engage in their instruction. And we're also entering in at the end of June curricular revision again in science under the next generation standards, and we're continuing the mathematics. So that's on tap for the end of June with the teachers and the curricular revision teams. The work ahead for you as SU board members and the SU leadership team is to use the information from the alignment of systems to support student achievement, to set specific objectives within the 3 SVSU goals with the leadership team. But I have not forgotten my commitment to seek commonality among the member districts and the members and their boards to assist the SU board in focusing on a new mission and vision. That's been a struggle over the year to really dedicate that time and bring recognition to the commonality that we have, and I intend to follow that up with individual conversations with SU board members on values and goals, values to bring forward to that. I haven't forgotten it. It's still on schedule. Thank you, Shamri.
Is that thunder? Yes. So this is it's a mini tangent, but in terms of learning and student outcomes, tomorrow at the CDC Assembly Room, many high school students in our high school do what's called a senior project, and they do field study speeches. And tomorrow from 9:30 to 2:05, there are students back-to-back giving their presentations to groups of people who may come to see them. So I can pass the list around. You can see what the topics are.
And I did email that to all board members last week.
So, thank you. Citizens' comments? And I'm sorry, I always call you by your last name. I like your last name.
Thank you. I just had 2 comments. The first is...
So who is it?
My name is Tara
I'm sorry.
Sky. Sorry. The first is, with public comments being at the beginning of the session, usually I think they should be, but I'd also ask if they could also be another section at the end of every session. It's hard as like a member of the community that you hear a lot of stuff happening in the 2-hour meeting, and then you have to wait a month before you can respond to.
So let me clarify that for the boards that I chair.
Okay.
There are citizen comments in the beginning of the meeting, but if you have a comment on a section that's listed on the agenda, after the board members have had, comments, any citizen is welcome to comment in that agenda item. You don't need to wait to give a response the following month under citizens' comments. So I'm sorry if you got that impression, but if it's a comment germane to the topic that we're discussing, your citizens are welcome to add a comment or, a question at that time.
Okay.
So I hope that clears that up.
That does. And then my second question/concern is, back in February, there was the focus monitoring report, or focus monitoring team that came to the supervisory union. And I know that report was supposed to originally be released on May 5th to the public. And I know there was an extension given, and I think that was the 14th or the 17th that it was then
It was the
supposed to come back out.
17th, and in checking with Ernie Wheeler, actually on that day, because I hadn't heard from him, we had given our responses back on the Monday of that week. He indicated that it would be delayed in their response getting out. So I haven't had a update on when it's going to be released, but I do know that we have had some individuals call him, and he's answered the same way I have, and I will contact him again and find out what the time schedule is.
So
we are waiting for it.
the SU is asking for additional
Oh,
time.
no, we submitted ours in the time frame that we have not asked for additional
Okay.
time.
I just know that I'm among many of members of the community that, especially with the BSD budget, I know other people wanted to see the report
Yes.
prior to the budget. And I know this is an SU meeting, but
It's an SU
for that
matter.
meeting, yeah,
It is an
exactly.
SU matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd also like to clarify for board members, the progress monitoring report that Ms. Sky is talking about is the team that came down here to evaluate pieces of
Special education.
and then that report is generated, then there's a response time, and then a response time back. And this board will get it when it becomes public, just as the public will get it.
It all is released at the same time.
So who would I go to for a final date if it's not the SU? Is it Ernie
Well, I'll
Wheeler
know.
that
I'll
would
find
have-
out. I'll find out and
Okay.
get that information out.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there more citizens' comments? No.
Sure.
Yes.
I only wanted to just comment on what you just commented about in terms of public comments and in respect to how we're going to make it through the board and who's responsible for documenting the replies back to the individuals that come forth from the public.
So
If we have a debate-
Catherine's has an ongoing list of those
Because
kind of
at the
things.
time that the comments are made, they should be comments, and whether you're going to have a discussion or a debate at that time. And that's what is the difference in what we're trying to do here. So if you open this up and says, for every topic on here, I'm allowed public comments as we go through this to have a discussion on that.
It's not a
When does the
discussion.
well,
It's not a discussion, it's a comment. So if
That's why
somebody
I wanted
has
to
a
make sure
comment.
that we understand the difference between a comment and a discussion. And what does the comment says, does it require this board to rebuttal or make replies, interpretation of what is being asked at this particular time? Or should that information be provided back in the form of some form of documentation back to the individuals that come here so that there won't be any mass confusion?
I would agree with that, but I think also, in the matter of timeliness, I don't want somebody to come back a month later and ask a question. But I'm not going to engage in a discussion. In fact, Catherine, you could have not engaged in a discussion.
True.
Lori, I'm going
But
to
I
give you
think
2
it's
minutes.
important.
Thanks, Leon.
I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. I wanted to come to the SVSU Board with a couple of questions, and again, that's quite all right if someone wants to respond to me via written response. One of them has to do with the Tell Vermont survey that educators have been participating in, and I wanted to know if if our educators indeed were solicited to provide feedback to the state, and also if the SVSU is going to utilize the results of that survey. That was one. I do have comments regarding our food service contract that it looks like we're going into, and I can address those at that time. The other issue I wanted to bring up is in regards to, and I'm going to say that at the last meeting for the MAU, Sean Marie made sure that I knew that I had to bring questions or concerns here regarding programming for the middle school in particular that may involve reintegration of students into this facility. And I was just wondering, if we had, I know a lot depends upon budgets, and staffing, but I guess as a parent, I'm sitting here waiting, and there is no plan, and I can't make any plans till somebody else make plans. And it's really hindering my students' progress in transitioning because there's no answers, and there's, no one is willing to commit to anything. And I understand budget, but on the flip side, what is the plan if budgets don't pass? What is the plan? What is it going to look like? Right now we have restructuring. One of my particular students' entire educational team is changing, and one of his main support staff has been ripped. So I'm looking at, for a special needs student, a total change in educational team for next year. Needless to say, I can also not put any transition, I guess, any kind of procedures in place because I have no idea what that looks like for next year. So does anyone have any suggestions for me as a parent on what it is?
I would suggest, do you have a student going into the middle school?
I have a student in the middle school transitioning to a higher grade.
So I would ask at the middle school that question.
I did, and you told me to come here.
No, not us, not the board. The board is not on the ground knowing the details. So you're gonna, if they don't have an answer, we don't have an answer.
Who does have the answers?
Well, we'll get back to you on that. So do you have another question?
I do on the food service contract. And we can wait
So the
till
food service contract is on the consent agenda for approval. And when we get to that, I guess we can pull it off if somebody makes a motion to pull it off. So I'm going to tell this board that I did something different, and I sent an email around noting that on number 3, the action items are included in the consent agenda with backup material for each item. So this is slightly new. We usually have resignations and nominations and warrants and minutes and everything on the consent agenda. What I asked to have happen for the sake of somewhat expediency and not just expediency, but not to stop discussion, but to have a more efficient running, was to have the various people who are in charge of these things, whether it be Rick or Catherine or Donna Leap or Marie, that the backup material for these items are here. You can certainly ask to have it pulled for discussion, or you can just simply ask a question before we approve it. But I moved a couple things to the consent agenda to try and see if it might work that way. Fran?
I'm still on public comments.
Oh.
Okay, so I'll do my spiel here. We know that we have a teacher's contract that we're going to get into by the end of the year, and I'm suggesting that every board goes into open negotiations. With that said, I'd like to make a motion here tonight, just an advisory question. If this board, I'm going to be asking every board chair to ask their board if they would entertain going into open negotiations. It kind of makes a lot of sense. It's common sense, actually, so we don't go into the mess that we had at the last negotiation. So I'll make the motion.
Fran?
Yeah?
Can I ask that we write it up and literally put it on the next agenda so that people can think about it?
Well, they've had time to think about it. I've been doing this for a few months now, so I don't know what they have to think about. It's a no-brainer. I'd like to do it now. It's not much of a motion. Would you entertain a motion to go into teacher negotiations in open session? That's all it is. That's what it's for.
Okay, and is there a second?
I'll second it.
So the discussion I've said this before too, along with Fran, is we can make this motion, we can say we want it, but both sides have to agree.
Is this an appropriate motion for public comments, part of the?
It's not public comments. It's, he asked for public comments, and now he's asking for a motion. Jim?
Just a comment on the wording?
That's why, Fran,
Entertain? I don't get that. I mean, either we are or we-
Do you want to go in and have teacher negotiations in open session at our next, John? That's basically what it is. I do. I've been negotiating since the 80s, and I can tell you, I think it's time.
I would like to suggest that we table that pending a legal comment on the statutory elements of the open meeting laws. And does that fall under, does this negotiation actually fall under open meetings? And once that question is answered, I'd be comfortable voting either way.
So, Fran, Jim has a good point. Not everybody, even though you've said it at every meeting, not everybody understands the ins and outs of executive session versus open session in terms of actually negotiating a contract. So I will happily put your motion on an agenda at MAU and SVSU with a note from the appropriate person. That's actually, it has been talked about, Jim, but it could be a concise piece of information for people to look at.
Is it legal? Is it legal?
It is legal if both sides agree.
Yes,
I don't know.
yes, it is, it is.
So there's,
I guess the other question
It
I
has.
have is not that, is it required under the open meeting laws?
No.
It's a no-brainer then. That would be great
not
if it's required.
No, it's not required. If I understand correctly, it's not required, and both
But
parties
it's
have to agree.
possible, but it is legal, that can be done.
so there is a motion and a second on the floor. So if you're not going to rescind it, I guess I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion on the floor to vote to negotiate in open session? 1, 2, 3. Opposed? 1, 2, 3,
There we go.
4. Abstentions?
Yeah, I don't like that
Woodford's not
word. I'm just
involved.
gonna- I will,
Three.
because I don't like the wording.
So that's 3, 4, 3. So,
I think Cindy changed her vote.
Ray,
Yeah, I'm not going to be involved in these negotiations. I would support it if the answer to Mr. O'Connor's question were produced and the issue came up again.
I think we can bring it back, but we probably can't bring it back in the exact words, or the yes or the no's have to make the motion to bring the same motion back, which is
So someone
possible.
who voted for it. would have-
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Ray, your question is, what do you want to see?
I want the opinion that Mr. O'Connor wanted first.
On open meeting law.
Support reviewing this, if that's, I know other districts do this. I'd like to know how they do it first.
Okay, so we have, the next item is the consent agenda.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Under nominations, if you could look at 10 nominations, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that A, B,
I know.
D, and E are pending authorization by their local boards. Again, this is a governance issue. These boards have not
Say that, which
authorized.
letters?
A, B, D, and E. C has already been authorized by their local board.
Well, but clearly Grace Christian and Sacred Heart aren't.
No,
gonna-
right.
They're not going to vote.
And for North Bennington, although the North Bennington Board is aware of this individual.
Ray?
I would like to remove the food service contract from the consent agenda, and also the consideration of the job description for assistant superintendent.
Okay, so we're removing A and 3A and 4A. Now, we need a motion to accept the consent agenda without 3A and 4A.
Can I just,
I'll make a motion.
And and Jim?
I wanted to remove a couple things for a quick comment.
You,
I would like to see, I have a question on 3C and nomination 10D I would like to talk about.
Okay, so, we're gonna remove 3A and C. We've already done 3A and 4A. And did you say 10C?
Yeah,
10D.
so we,
Okay, so can we go ahead and ask that question on 10D, and then you can decide if you want to pull it?
is it an executive session?
Ask the question?
What? It's executive session?
No, I just want to discuss it.
Okay.
Can we just, okay. I'm shocked that, first of all, there's no water at this meeting. We cut the budget, I guess.
There's no water.
I'm just joking. Just looking at the backup on this.
There's plenty outside.
Okay, at the backup on this, it's a substitute. And it's with 34 years experience, retired, and we're looking at 6 figures, okay? And with the problems being faced by some of our members here with budgets, couldn't we look at somebody less experienced? I mean, that's $100,000 before it's all said and done. Over $100,000
It's for the remainder of the year from the
That's a lot of money during a period when Bennington is looking at an 86%.
Is the person they're subbing for unpaid leave?
Yes. I think unpaid now, yes.
Unpaid or paid?
Well, it's unpaid, it might be, yeah, you can't discuss that in more detail than that, but it's an unpaid leave right now.
Yeah.
I recognize?
Yes.
Just curious how he's calculating $100,000.
From a year.
It was $90 a day for the first 15 days.
Yeah.
And then roughly $336 thereafter. I don't know how many school days there are from February 11th through June 20th, but
About 90, maybe.
I can't in my head come up with $100,000.
Maybe 90.
No, the annual rate there is, I got an annual rate of $84,000.
Yeah.
It's just a big number for.
The answer in some regard is the number of applicants that are qualified for that position, but the other answer is that the actual payment is...
Unfortunately, you're going to have to speak up.
The actual payment is for a long-term sub, which this is actually guided by the collective bargaining agreement once the applicant is chosen. So it's the long-term sub rates are actually governed by the collective bargaining agreement with the teachers union.
There's one applicant, there's one interviewed. The applicant's retired with 34 years of experience, which is a super top rate.
They had the experience. There was only one applicant in response to that posting.
So Ray and Larry both, I mean, I don't think anybody out there can hear either, but what Catherine is saying is that the person that's needed for that position has to have a very specific experience and expertise, and she did recently retire. I mean, that obviously is adding up to those years. And I think the anticipation, if I understand it correctly, was that the person is out somewhat unexpectedly.
Yes, that's correct.
It wasn't planned, it was that she can't be there.
All I'm just bringing to the board's attention is
the cost.
That's a $100,000 item. Okay, that's it.
If you paid it for the whole year, but you're not, you're only paying it for from the time that she's actually in there, right?
February 11th through June 20th.
It's a very, very high rate of pay.
I don't disagree that, but it's not $100,000.
Okay, that's a high rate.
I don't want the community to think that it's $100,000.
No, I defer to you on that, but.
Okay, so, but just to be clear, that, we did not pull that from the consent agenda, so I just want to make sure that everybody realizes it's still on the consent agenda, and if that's the wishes of this board, it will remain on the consent agenda. Ray?
Well, I should have used the 3A-B system. 3A and B should be out because B is tied to A, of course. That's the increase in lunch prices. Okay.
Well, they're different. One is, the lunch price is, right?
Separate.
I mean, they're not, they would have been tied together?
But he's removing it for a different reason. So he's asking to remove A and B.
Okay, so Ray, you want to amend the motion to remove B as well?
Yes, I will.
Okay, so right now, we don't have 3 on the consent agenda, so let's just start going through this, okay? So finance, 3A, Rick. And Lori has a question on it.
Sure.
So do you want to explain more than that's in the memo, that it's a 4-year contract with an annual renewal? And you got to speak up.
Usually don't have a hard time people hearing me, but if you do, throw something at me and I'll speak up.
Oh, there's rain in the room.
There you go, louder.
You got answered.
I realize it's easy to hear. But, yeah, it's actually, it is 1-year renewals of this contract, and the Food Service Advisory Committee meets on usually a monthly basis. We skip a few months here and there. Been very happy with with our vendor. We've increased our meal participation, and we're recommending for approval. And if we don't get it, there won't be any summer meals, because we'll have to go out for bid, which will take considerable amount of time.
Okay. Who had a question on that?
Question?
Jim?
I skimmed through it pretty good. I don't see any dollar amounts in here, even where you have a spot for dollar amounts. There's no numbers in here.
The food service program is designed to be a break-even process. They actually guarantee us, I think it's a $25,000, maybe it's 35, between $25,000 and $35,000 surplus that gets invested back into the food service program by law. By federal law, it has to be invested into the program. We can't use that, for example, to buy library books. It has to either buy equipment in the kitchens, increase the quality of the food. It used to be to reduce prices, but now when we get to the next item, you're going to see that the feds is requiring us to raise prices. So that money has to go back into the system. It does not cost the district any money for that service.
So it's like federal money in and out constantly?
Yep.
For this, okay. And on page 10, C and D, you're supposed to, it calls for the administrative fee as a dollar amount and a blank space. Is there a reason for that?
The administrative fee is a fixed price. I'm assuming they just probably gave you a sample. I can probably find that document here. They gave you a sample document to review. What page, John?
Page 10, 6.1 C and D. It has an opening to put in a number, and the number is not there.
Yeah, this document, unfortunately, was the RFP that was sent out originally, looks like, that they were to respond to. I can get you the responses to that where it has that number in there. This is the federal document that we are required to use to put out for the contract and for the RFP. I apologize that it wasn't filled in. My head sticks around $27,000 is the management fee.
So we're being asked to vote on something that's has no numbers on it. But I'm also hearing that it's all federally mandated, so anything we say is going to change it. Correct?
Well, I would say that is an oversight, that I think for us who've been on the board, we went through the bid process for the companies and the recommendation for this company. So I applaud your keen eye, Jim. And I think that Rick should send that administrative fee to
I will.
the board.
I'll get that out.
Do people feel comfortable voting on it without that administrative fee in there?
I'm fine.
Jim?
I'm fine.
The guaranteed profit is net of that, so again, it's no cost to the district.
And then
Great. Okay.
the next item is the price of the meal What was it? Was it going from to? What was the previous price? I don't see it.
It's going up 15 cents.
It was.
And we are, through the new National Food Program, I forget what they call it, that was passed last year, we're required by 2015 to be at certain levels. This year we went up 10 cents. Next year we're proposing 15 cents, and we're required to get there in order to get our free and reduced lunch money back. And basically what that's saying is the federal government is going to reimburse us at that rate, and if we don't charge those that do not qualify for free and reduced lunch, we won't get that federal reimbursement back.
Understood.
Now, how does any of this impact the fact that the law changed that reduced is no longer reduced, it's free?
In Vermont.
That's just the state.
That's the state?
Yeah, the state, and I haven't researched to figure out how they're going to pay for that, but the state is somehow going, the state is somehow going to write us a check, because if somebody's reduced, say the price of the meal is $2 and the feds pay $1, somehow the state needs to figure out a mechanism to give us that other $1. And I haven't seen how that's going to happen yet. I know that they passed it, but I'm assuming rules have to be written.
Sean, Ray?
Ray, did you have a question on these A and B, on these two?
No, my district's not going to benefit from this. I'm going to abstain. That's why I asked it.
Okay, so I'm going to go to George and then Lori, if there's no more board questions.
I was just, Rick, I understand that 15 cents. Does this in fact, are there students that 15 cents is going to affect?
Sure. Anyone that does not qualify, that has a family household income above whatever that cutoff is, that the feds deem have sufficient income to buy a meal, they will see that increase.
That tends to change from year to year.
But
if we don't,
anybody that qualifies for free and reduced
doesn't mean anything.
Won't see anything. They won't see any difference, which is 70% of our population.
And yet, if we don't approve the 15 cents,
We won't get the federal.
We won't get
the federal reimbursement.
We won't get the federal reimbursement.
No brainer.
Lori, any other board questions? Lori, is it on A or B, or 3A or B?
It's actually on the food service contract.
So A. Okay.
I don't have the agenda in front of me, I'm sorry.
And speak up, please.
Certainly. On page 2, item E, in reference to the FSMC agrees to meet all requirements and performance standards, et cetera. What I see in a couple of different areas of the document, in that section, section E, on page 3F, and then on page 4, 3.5, and then on page 7, section N. So that's the comments that I want to make is that recently we changed the health and wellness policy for the SVSU. It's policy number 5156 to include certain legal references in regards to food service with students with special needs. And I think that some of the wording on this document is very vague, because we are very specific, saying the SFA shall do this and shall do that. But when it comes to, and we actually quote the Code of Regulations, but again, if we bring it back to the Code of Regulations provided for those students with special needs, specifically the CFR, I'm sorry, just bear with me, 7 CFR Part 210, Part 220, and Part 15B, I don't see 15B referenced at all, and that's non-discrimination in accordance with that. But it really surprises me that we have very specific regulations pointed out for quality control, for, and yet we have this vagueness regarding federal and state regulations. And I think that's, I think a little more emphasis needs to be put there, because I think it's important that we make sure that our contractors do follow these regulations. I mean, I did provide legal references at one time for that food and wellness policy, and you can refer to them. They're at the bottom of the food and wellness policy. And I think that we need to incorporate some of those here to make sure we cover bases with that. And I'm not sure if this is appropriate or not.
Would it be fair to say that we could add to this to include any state laws that may not be in this document?
Well, actually, the state tells us what we have to use in this document, and I believe somewhere it describes that our wellness policy becomes a part of this document to strengthen this document.
Right.
I don't believe, based on my experience and understanding, that we have the ability to change this document. This is mandated from the Fed to the state to us. We can strengthen it through our wellness policy, which the Food Service Advisory Committee is currently waiting for the new federal regs, which were supposed to have been out, I think, in February, and they've been promised in March and in April and May. My guess is we probably won't see them until July or August. But once those come out, the Food Service Advisory is going to re-examine our food service policy and make recommendations to the policy committee for changes to that. I'll be happy to look in to see this, but I'm...
Well, 7.1 does actually say we comply with law.
You know,
And if it's state or federal law, we have to comply.
you know, through numerous conversations with Lori Colgan, who's at the state of Vermont that manages all this, it is a very, very controlled environment from their perspective to our perspective. And this is their document that we just changed the name to protect the innocent. And if they don't, they won't approve it for us.
Well, I find it really surprising because if you look at page 4, item 3.5 specifically lists that students with medical necessity or we can supply special diets, but it goes beyond that. It's
What
not
page
just
you on?
medical necessity, and it can also be approved by a nutritionist, not necessarily a licensed physician.
Page 4.
So again, I don't mean to be argumentative on it. I'm just pointing it out because I think it's important that we make sure that we do put that through to our contractors, that we make sure that we have these provisions set forth so that we have everyone on the same page.
I don't understand. It's in here and you're supporting that it's in here.
I'm sorry?
I guess I'm missing the point.
Okay, page 4, item
Yeah.
3.5.
Yeah.
Special diets, right?
Yeah.
Special diets do not necessarily have to be prescribed by a physician only, and you would have limited it to physician. It can be a nutritionist.
Are we splitting hairs?
I don't know, are we?
I don't know. I'm saying, does the board feel comfortable adopting this as written?
Yes.
Okay. So Lori, I think that your concerns, which are very valid in terms of the points you're bringing up, can either they can go to a couple places. They can go to the Food Service Committee, they can go to the state, they can go to Rick specifically to address that, to bring to the Food Service Committee. But I think if you write down those very specific things that Richard may not have gotten the exact.
They're at the bottom of the policy 5156.
Okay.
They are there. So again, when we're very specific, where we point out the Code of Federal Regulations and we're pulling specific ones, it's really interesting how, this one's sort of like wrapped in vague, descriptions. And I really want to make sure that we do have this consistent across contracts with our subcontractors or service providers, that they are fully aware that the SVSU has this expectation when entering a contract.
Oh, they're aware.
They're aware.
I think they're at the table. I mean, I do believe that Maureen and Stephanie are at the table at these meetings, at least according to the minutes they are.
And that policy is a part of the contract. So if you're saying you're comfortable with the language in the policy, then you should be comfortable.
What page is that reference on? Rick?
I'm actually looking for it as I speak.
Let me know, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, so, Ray, oh, no. 3, so is everybody comfortable with 3B? Okay, so 3C. Did we pull 3C?
Yes.
All right,
I have one
You
question.
pulled all of me.
okay. Well, see, it's so much for my, Jim
The
or,
question I say, it's a $500,000 contract, and it's,
Well, it's more than $500,000.
well, it's a lot of money.
It's over $2 million now.
It's a lot of money, and here again, it's,
no.
I don't see multiple bids on it.
And insurance?
Yes, the
We
insurance.
just couldn't find somebody, why isn't anybody interested in a?
No, we actually do every 5 years. We do, and someone else around this table, I guess, was on that, Frank was on that committee.
Yeah.
When was that? 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
3 years.
And we had 5 or 6 bidders. It's 5 one-year contracts with an out by the district. So if the district wants to get out, the process would be the Food Service Advisory Committee would have to come to this board in early January to say,
No, insurance.
No, the
No, we're-
liability insurance, I think, for the school.
All right, I got it.
We're on the liability insurance.
I'm sorry, I missed that one. You gotta speak above the thunder. I missed that.
We're on 3C.
It's not
I think
$2
that's
million.
$500,000.
Yeah, you got it. All right.
He was right.
Let me get there.
And my only question on this, again, I mean, we're oversight, all right?
Yep.
And it's just that it appears like another one bidder.
Yeah, the
Why
insurance,
isn't anybody interested in that?
the school insurance business is interesting at best. There's not a lot of companies out there that are willing to take on the risk of school insurance policies. We sent the proposals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different companies. We had interest from 2 companies. We had 2 proposals from 1 company, of which 1 proposal was only a partial proposal, so we really only had 1 proposal.
Yeah.
There's been years in the past where we've had nobody want to do the insurance, and we've had to scramble to try to cobble it together. It's a very, very delicate market, and the problem is, and there's a quirkiness in the insurance industry, that if an agency A goes to company B, Allstate, to pick a name, Allstate will no longer talk to any other agency. That agency has exclusive right with that company. So when there's such a narrow market, there's very few agencies that can cobble together the various pieces of insurance, because it's property, it's auto, it's liability, it's workers' comp, there's a crime policy in there, there's an umbrella liability policy in there, and we have, and I don't have that with me, but there's like 4 different companies that are cobbled together with this agency to produce that umbrella level of insurance coverage that we have. We try very hard to get as much competition as we can, but that's one area where very few people
Rick.
will step forward.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Rick, I just want to be sure, picking up on Jim's point, that all of the local insurance companies got the opportunity to bid on this, and the information that came from one of the companies is they didn't. So I have no problem with anything that's presented tonight, but I just want to say that maybe before we award it, that we want to be absolutely sure that all the local insurance companies did get the opportunity to bid.
They
I have
did.
no reason to think that they didn't.
They did.
But I got word that one said they did not get anything. So whatever way, I just think that.
They all had the opportunity.
Are the RFPs posted as well as mailed out?
Yep.
The information sheet gives you Finn and Stone, Lonergan and Thomas,
Right.
Wills Agency.
Yeah.
And it was advertised in the banner. There were multiple opportunities.
Then I have something more for you.
For the 3C?
Yeah, on the 3C.
Okay.
we're all in trouble financially. I'm just always trying to think of ways to save money. And I've worked for a lot of big companies, and we just self-insure. So the question I would ask, do we have a 5-year or a 10-year history of these items, how much we've paid out? And does the math work out where, let's take the risk ourselves? I'm just saying, that's.
I wouldn't recommend it.
No, you have to have insurance.
The payouts that we've had.
We actually had a district recently join in.
And you know, we've done that with food service
Self-insured.
too in the past. We've looked at doing the food service ourselves, and we have in the past. Ray?
I have one other question. Given that there's only one bidder, it's sort of beside the point, but have their rates for property, general liability, and those sorts of coverages exclude workman's comp, because we know that's gone up. Have they been going up it's been 3 years since we dealt with this contract?
No, they've been relatively flat, and on top of that, at their cost, they've reappraised all the buildings at current market value, which they are now insured at current market value, which is significantly higher than it was before.
And that's increasing the cost a little bit because they've reappraised?
Yeah, very slightly, though, nowhere near what I anticipated, because I was very nervous about the values we had as scheduled values in our insurance policies. And so we've been able to increase that over the period of time with very little increases in premium. And the way this is structured is that's an umbrella policy for everybody. So since you asked the question, I mean, if North Bennington building burned down tomorrow, and we have it insured at, pick a number, $3 million, I don't know what the number would be. If that replacement cost came in at $5 million, because I've got the blanket property value of the entire SVSU of something close to $200 million, you were guaranteed replacement of your facility.
I remember that from the presentation 3 years ago about this.
It's a very creative, advantageous program for all the members of the district. And actually, North Bennington and Woodford are recent examples. Woodford, most recent, North Bennington was probably 7-8 years ago, who had their own insurance policy outside of our policy. And when we did the analysis, it was a significant savings coming into the master policy.
Okay. So are we okay with 3C?
Yeah.
Do you still want to, okay, and then, Ray, job description for the Assistant Superintendent for Special Services?
Student services.
I'm sorry, Student Services.
So wait a minute, all those were pulled, you're now putting them back into the consent agenda?
The food service stuff is not back in.
I'm going to go over this when we get through the list. Ray?
Well, I have several, I voted against this position last month.
Okay, so that's why you want it pulled?
Well, I wanted it pulled, yes, so that I could vote against it again, and also so that I could say my piece, which is that I don't think we've been given any plan here for this position that shows us how it's going to deal with the issues in special education. And it seems to me that based on the positions that what has been presented to us by parents in several meetings, where the problem seems to be more located at the service end of things, where children receive services. I don't, and given that the BSD budget is in doubt at the moment, shall we say, to be spending $100,000 to $115,000 on an employee who's nearly at the top of the administrative structure just seems to me to be out of proportion to the actual duty of this board. I don't really believe that
Okay, so I'm
This
going
is
to
going to solve the
I
issues.
can,
And
okay, I
from
can
my point
address.
of view, every time we move structure, move function up higher on the ladder, it gets distributed to all districts. In special ed, I'm talking about, it gets distributed to all the districts, and I don't think that's appropriate in this case.
Okay, what I'm going to do, so we can, Richard, what's the motion on the floor?
In terms of what's going to do the code,
Yes.
I was also just told there's a tornado.
The tornado warning where?
Here,
Here.
in this area,
Right up top of this building, huh?
about a mile away.
No. Just been home for a long.
Okay, so who made the, I'll deal
Are
with
we
that.
okay the insurance?
Yeah.
Right away? Before we,
I'll deal with that.
do it now.
It sounds pretty good. Let's go.
I just want to try and make this a little cleaner here, to keep and continue the discussion that Ray just started.
And George had a question.
I know George has a question too. So, there's a motion on the floor, I think, that took off 3A, B, and C, and 4A, which is the job description. So, whoever made the first and second, is it okay to put finance A, B, and C back in?
No.
No, Ray wants A out.
No.
Ray wants A out
Sorry, I
separately.
didn't make a...
I'm trying to get everything in but the assistant superintendent.
No, he doesn't want the two food service A and B in either.
You don't want them in?
No, he's going to
3A and B
out.
outside. to be
Right,
voted
he's
on.
very specific about it. In the manner in which he's going to
Because
vote.
otherwise I'm going to have to abstain or vote against the whole thing. And I can't do that.
So Richard, what's in the consent agenda right
He
now?
doesn't want to abstain against the whole consent agenda.
Insurance, I don't
Right.
know whether or not you're still on. All three of those got removed.
I'll rescind, can I change my mind?
Yes.
For
I
C,
changed my mind.
Okay, so 3C is in there?
yes.
Insurance is okay.
Okay, so let's go up to the minutes. The minutes include the April 24th minutes and the post-executive session minutes. They were supposed to include May 13th as well, but I don't see them, although I sent them, I don't see them in the packet. Did anybody have May 13th? Okay, so everybody's okay with the minutes? Everybody's okay with the warrants? We have questions on the warrants?
One question?
Yes.
Quick. $15,000 for iPads, okay?
iPads?
And not so much
Give me the
that
number.
as Apple Care, you know. That sounds like that insurance you buy, all right, that you're not supposed to buy. It was $14,707 to Apple. And again, under the problems we're having.
Do you have a check number?
A check number?
Yeah.
51345. It just jumps out as something, do we really need that? Because it appears only one member of this committee can afford it, or can afford one.
I got it.
Again, I'm just trying to.
Frank and Jim?
How about some big ones?
A lot of big ones.
And that's a complaint too.
Those were,
You can't read it, Sean.
you see it?
It's too small.
It actually came out of Kathy Marcoux's budget. Is he still here?
Just left. Are you looking at your iPhone, Karen? Do you see the eye of the storm?
I do not see the eye. What I have is that it's
Where is it?
Who's it called?
Frank?
Heading our way?
Yeah, I'm gonna speak to
Heading west?
Yeah. You got the answer?
That's north.
Yeah, the iPad question. This was a response in a sense. I'm trying to make this clear. We had a whole lot of teachers had signed up for workshops to go and get iPads. And it was going to cost a lot more than $15,000, I forget what it was. And there's been some discussion in policy committee about not providing iPads for teachers when they go to those workshops. But in the contract, we're required to pay for professional development opportunities for teachers who are eligible, who haven't used up their two. What we did was we created our own workshop here where we get the 20 iPads for the $15,000, and the applicant is breakage and all that stuff for 3 or 4 years out, whatever it is. So for substantially less money, we have 20 iPads for teachers to use in their classrooms, and we provide the professional development for that. And it's and we don't have to pay for them to go to the other workshops. So that was the logic and where we're at with that. Is that?
Which school was this for? Is this for the?
This is for SVSU.
Well, my only comment is that, yeah, I like all this stuff too, but we're hurting for money. We're looking for places to save money, and maybe we should have postponed that. That's all. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to comment on that. The reason that's in there is that we're saving money by doing this.
Okay.
Okay, that's what, there was a big discussion about Frank hit on. The professional development is a requirement under the contract, but in some of the professional development pieces that were being allowed, we were paying more money for iPads than what we should be paying versus if we bought them and provided them like we're supposed to be doing. Okay.
You're fine, it's in Woodford.
Okay.
I understand that part.
Okay, so we're saving money.
So, I know, Rick, did the doors go out to bid?
The doors.
The doors, not the music group, the central office door?
Oh, yes. Doors, cameras, fob system, all that.
So can this board at a later date get a report on the safety things that were done to the central office?
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions on the warrants? Okay. So in this consent agenda, we have minutes, warrants, the insurance bid, the early childhood paraprofessional, the resignations, and the nominations. And are there any questions on any of those things I just mentioned? All in favor? It's unanimous. Now, a motion for the food service contract renewal, please.
So be it.
That Cindy made a motion to accept the food service contract renewal for 1 year. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, pick. You can pick. Any more discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Abstention? One abstention. Can we have a motion to approve the 15-cent increase to the lunch prices for 13-14?
So be it.
That's Cindy and Leon. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? One. Okay, job description. The remaining one is the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. This is simply an approval of the job description as written, although Donna did,
May I make a comment about that?
yes, you can, but I'm just going to say that for the public, there is an attachment with that has the recommendation from the Assistant Superintendent and the Superintendent, and it did go to the Personnel Committee as well. Go ahead, Ray.
Well, with respect to the job description itself, at one point it calls for a requirement that this person be a change agent, and then at other points it calls for a person who is going to work collaboratively with a whole bunch of people, including central office, administration, principals, parents, and community members, etc. I submit that those two face in different directions, or they could face in different directions, in terms of being a change agent as opposed to a person who's going to collaborate and play nicely with everyone else. So I think there's an inherent conflict in the job description per se, and that doesn't bode well for it being any sort of a solution to problems that are as yet, I think, not well defined in presentation to this board.
All right, well, did I ask for a motion? I didn't, right? So
Make a motion.
we can either make a motion and a second to accept it, and you can edit it, and it can go back to it is posted, the job is posted. But if you have revisions that you would like to see in there, the Personnel Committee meets on June 6th. Jim and then, or George and then Jim.
Well, I wanted to pick up on Ray's point, and I am on that committee, but my position right now is in view of the situation that Bennington is in, I don't think we should be posting or hiring anybody at that salary. And therefore, I plead with the supervisory not to go along with this. We need every nickel we can get, and I'm going to be asking later on tonight for more reconsideration from the supervisory union. So I want to support Ray 100%.
So, but you have to understand that this motion, if we even make a motion, is for the job description, not for the position. Fran, and, was it Fran that's next?
I don't even want to approve a job description. In light of the situation that we were in and have been in, we got to take care of business first. If there's a job description out there, that means it can be filled. I don't want to do that. With the way the district is, and I want to help Bennington. I mean, they're in a pickle. There's no doubt, and I don't think we should this should go away for now, and we'll look at it at a later date. But as far as I'm concerned, I can't vote on this.
Okay, so again, this is not, I don't have a problem pulling the job description, but the job is posted and it was explained about this person will be, and neither the assistant or the superintendent are here.
Well, I don't think it should be filled, number one, and I just think we got to take care of other things first. We're just getting into something we don't need to get into.
Well, you know what, we can bring the fact that it's posted up on June 6th, but I would actually make a recommendation to just table the job description. I would be happy to have the Personnel Committee look at changes.
It was posted as an anticipated opening.
Get rid of it.
Right.
It's an anticipated
Get
opening.
involved.
Right, it's not a position.
So,
That's the long.
May I?
Ray?
It seems to me that if we don't vote a job description, we can't fill the opening.
That's right.
Well, there
And
actually...
I think that's what Fran was saying.
Yes, absolutely.
There is another job description that has this title. This is just an amendment to the previous job description that says Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. This is an updated version of the one that exists now.
Well, if it's an updated version, it was updated for a reason. And the reason is why we would be looking for this person. I would say that the previous description doesn't apply to seeking a new person.
Well, we can't put it up there till it's approved.
Because it was found inadequate.
Right.
So what half this board, or some of the members of this board are saying in your absence is that they don't want to see this job filled.
No.
But it was voted on at the last meeting.
So I think I can answer the major portion of your question, Ray, which I was checking to see where would we relocate should we need to because of the tornado. We would move to the locker rooms, just so you know, and we'd go out this door to the left, take a right, and go into the right to the locker rooms. But to answer the question, the reason that we've proposed this position by taking the funding source from coordinator positions in 2 departments is to create that visibility of authority. What we're finding is, yes, there are service issues at the direct service line, but what's happening is that it's an unclear authority line under 153 and the practical application of principles and communication with central office. To have one person, a director level, to try to supervise all of that is not sufficient. And so it seemed that rising the level of authority to assistant superintendent would help give visibility to the authority level and help spread that accountability and information throughout the supervisory union, having a director and an assistant superintendent. So that was the impetus for the creation of the position, to go back to the structure that was had with the expansion to student services. And we also, it gives greater oversight administratively to supervision of our related services of guidance nurses, speech and language psychologists, behavior specialists, social work clinicians, that we would have greater administrative resource to pull those people together and coordinate services, schedules.
May I respond?
Yeah. Yep.
No, I don't actually agree with that. You may or may not have a point, I don't know, but I don't think that answers the entire question by any means. And I believe that there has not been a sufficient discussion of what actually is the need here to proceed with this at all. And I have a number of questions which I think would be best dealt with at the level of dealing with the job description and talking about the need for a position in this area. And I don't think we're there.
Okay. So what's the direction?
So there's two things out there.
Well, it is two things, but Larry, I don't understand your note about SM thinks this may have been a mistake, but... Oh, okay, because these minutes on page 8 of the minutes that we all just approved, it says that we approved the posting of 2 assistant superintendent positions, and it was actually 1. It
Right.
was 2 or it was 1?
1.
It was
Just 1.
It was the one
For student
the
services.
Student services.
Right.
Not,
Right.
so I don't know how we can amend the minutes if somebody makes a motion for the minutes to be amended to, it's giving approval to post 2. We have 1 filled.
Well, we knew it as 1, and we posted 1.
Well, do we have a motion on the floor?
No, no motion. There's no motion.
I'll make a
on-
motion to amend the minutes.
Ray,
Okay.
excuse me.
Ray abstained or opposed those minutes. I can't.
I didn't oppose the minutes.
No, not the minutes, I'm sorry, that motion that's in front of Larry or somebody now.
He's making the motion.
You mean last meeting?
Yes.
Yes, I opposed the job description,
Right.
but this is just a correction to the minutes.
Right.
Correct, so go ahead.
He did.
So I'm making a motion to correct the minutes to show that there was one assistant superintendent position posted, and that position was for student services.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
More discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I think it's unanimous. Now, we can table the approval of the job description. It can go on the June 6th personnel meeting, and then it can go on to we are having an SVSU meeting pretty much specifically for personnel matters that will mostly be an executive session. But we can do a little business ahead of time. We are not having part 2 presentation on June 6th. Catherine scared me. This is strictly for personnel, and that would...
And position approvals.
And position approvals. So we
This
can...
is the SU meeting personnel, not the personnel committee meeting.
Right, it's going to be the personnel committee meeting prior to but it's on the same day. They're
Right,
both
back
June
back
6th.
back to back.
What day of the week is that?
Thursday.
Thursday.
That's a Thursday, okay.
So that's been tabled, and we can take it up then, as in the positions that may or may not be posted, and the job description.
Yep.
Okay, so the SVSU is at 6:30?
I didn't.
You didn't set a time because Personnel Committee starts at 5:30.
So it'll be 7.
Okay, so we need the date. What's the date?
June 6th.
June 6th. Okay.
The Personnel Committee is at 5:30 and the meeting is at 7.
Okay.
Leon?
Could we just, I wanted to make sure we documented what we were posting, the reason we were pulling the job description. There was two specific things that, one, that the information, if I'm right, indicate that things are going in two directions within the information in the job description is the reason he wanted to have that table so it could be looked at. And
Too
the other
conflicting?
concern was whether the position should be filled or not. It's the reason it was
Okay.
going to be held. And I just wanted to make sure that clearly got into the minutes.
So,
I just want to be on record, I'd like to see it go away, and we'll deal with that at a later date when we take care of business. We haven't taken care of business. There's stuff this full board doesn't even know what the hell they're voting on, and I think we need to do that first before we talk about any job description or have it tabled or anything else. I want it to go away, so we start fresh. That's what should happen.
well, I don't exactly know what you mean.
I
but-
think I do.
But right now, we're not voting on it. Right now, it's been tabled.
Right.
But it is on the Personnel Committee meeting now, which was already scheduled. And there is a meeting scheduled, which I sent you an email about last week, for June 6th, which is strictly for personnel, which this would fall into, which the discussion about whether or not it can be or will be filled is an appropriate place for this board to discuss that. Right now, it's an anticipated opening, nobody is
Right.
filling it.
No.
I don't think any interviews have happened.
No.
It's just posted as an anticipated opening.
And its due date is not even, for anticipated, isn't even here yet.
So the next item.
Larry?
I'm sorry.
Jean-Marie, did you say there'd be an opportunity to perhaps bring this into executive session at that point,
This job description?
if need be?
It's not
The job
a,
description is not an executive session item, but there are personnel items that will be in executive session. I hope I'm not screaming, but I'm trying to. On June 6th, the meeting was originally set for personnel matters, a number of different personnel issues that will in fact be in executive session.
and some that will be public.
There will be an executive session tonight on personnel matters as well as an evaluation and one other, and an ESP update. If people are, if they're all updated from the board level, we won't do that, but. So now,
Jean-Marie, I think I would just like to clarify, if I could. I think the whole thinking of board members has changed since the Bennington negative vote. We feel a sense of flex here. We feel a sense of concern for where Bennington is going, and I think our thoughts at this point is that we want to be very careful about adding any more additional issues and expense onto the supervisory.
okay, so I just want to be clear that we're not adding money onto the supervisory union. This is all prior approved, but I completely understand, and George, made his point, and I know Ken did previously, so I just, for anybody who's viewing, I just want to be clear that we're not adding positions and money to a budget that this is already approved, but I understand we're going to look at it again. I mean, that's the direction I think the board is saying we need to look at it again.
My point about the money issue, Bennington's vote, was that it does not appear to me to be a very complimentary thing in the sense of, I should use a different word, sorry. It doesn't appear to me to be sympathetic to the situation to be approving a higher level position at this kind of level and finding and putting money toward paying someone's salary at it when we have a district that's going through this difficulty of passing the budget where those services for children who need those special ed services are in jeopardy.
I hear you, Ray, but I have a slightly different view, which is that I think that there needs to be some some oversight and some evaluations and somebody accountable for what may be going on in the direct services. And so I'm not negating that there's an issue that's on the ground, but there needs to be some person that's evaluating what's on the ground. And that was really the presentation of this, originally. So we are going to table this for...
We had that before.
What? We had a director level before, but we're gonna discuss that part in executive session. So now we're moving on to the superintendent's report, which is already given, the budget status report, which was run on May 23rd. If there's no questions, we can get a report. We'll be closer to the end of the year and then obviously at the next meeting. Rick or Catherine, are we still running a 2-week?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
So on June 6th, there may be another one? I don't know where the
12th, I think it's the 12th.
I think it was the 12th we put
Yeah, it's the 12th that's being run.
Okay. We need a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of approving the treasurer's report? It's unanimous. I pretty much gave my report. That's the June 6th for personnel matters. The rest you'll see minutes, and we do need an executive session. Richard, if you could wait around, there will be one, after a brief executive session, there will be one motion, and then, is there anything under other?
I do.
George, yeah, okay. No, George had mentioned earlier.
As you know, the Bennington School District Board lost its budget for the second time, and so we're coming back again to ask for any help that we can get from the supervisory union. So I have 2 or 3 items that I'd like to bring up, and I realize it's late in the evening, but I'd like to first of all ask Rick if there's any further income or adjustments that are going to be made to the supervisory union up to this date that would affect our assessment.
No,
No,
not at this point in time.
no,
So these adjustments in grants coming in aren't going to affect that?
not at all. The other item that I have is that, and I throw this out and it picks up on Ray's point, I'd almost like to recommend that the board give consideration to a freeze on any and all staff, even at the central office. I just don't think we're in a position to be adding any kind of positions at any level, because we are in serious position in Bennington, and I will tell you that many people have called me, people that I don't necessarily get along with, and we're hurting bad, and they've criticized us. And one of the items that Ray brought up, and I understand where we're coming from, but they do not buy positions that we're starting off at $100,000 and $115,000 on central office level. And you can sit and argue and tell that's what they're getting in other districts. This area does not support it, and I'm not going to support it from this point on. So that's where I'm coming from. Last item I want to bring up is that I think the supervisory union should give serious consideration to a meeting with our area legislators to see if we can't get a bill passed that supervisory union budget should be voted on by the public. And I would urge this board to give that serious consideration. This budget is huge. It should be able to stand the test of time by all of the communities voting on it. And I think that we should be moving it forward, meeting with our area legislators and see if a bill can't be introduced at the next legislative session to see if that can't happen. That ends my items.
So I'm going to just add to that the state board has talked about the function of supervisory unions, and it is on our legislative agenda to discuss in June, because the creation of the supervisory unions as a service organization board has changed, and there have been, from the state board's point of view, many adjustments and people making recommendations to changing the makeup of the SU board, as well as the point about the additional responsibilities put on the SU board, and yet the public doesn't fund it. So, yes, I think if you want to contact your local legislators on that, that might be taken up next session. And there was a bill that didn't go anywhere. I don't know where it went, but.
Senator, George had mentioned any and all positions. What are the other than the assistant superintendent?
Well, I've been shot down so many times. For example, I'm still dead against the human resource position that we wanted to fund here. I'm looking for every dollar I can find for Bennington. I represent Bennington on this board.
Yep.
And anything that I can do to get that assessment lowered, I have to do. So my vote, I'll let you know tonight, is never going to be for any of those positions, including HR. And I'm hoping that I can convince other board members to join me in shooting it down. It's just not the time to be hiring new people at the salaries that we're offering for these jobs.
That HR position is so important to all of us.
I know, they're all important. Every position's important.
It's important to all of us, and we have been,
You tell the
HR.
Bennington taxpayer that.
They didn't come out to vote.
Well, I'm just saying, we're hurting.
Wait, was that your other?
No, well, I just wanted to know what the other positions were, and that's fine. He said it, and that's fine.
There's also some vacant coordinator. There's a vacant coordinator position as well.
And Kathy Marcoux is leaving, and this wasn't her last meeting, was it?
No.
Okay. Catherine, can you and Cindy do the quick one while I make copies of this for our executive session? A motion to adjourn to executive session, please.
So moved.
Second.
For
Personnel matters.
Personnel matters, including employment.
And ESP
And
negotiations.
ESP updates.
Where are we meeting, Kathy?
Superintendent evaluation, but we may not get to that
Where are we meeting?
in the conference room.
Yeah.
To the left?